The motion picture begins with Natalie, a youthful young lady driving along the cliffs of San Fernando Valley, found 16 miles north of Los Angeles. Suddenly, a shake slide causes her car to drop and dangle hazardously at the edge of a cliff. Inside minutes, Chief Raymond Beam, Gaines and his group from the Los Angeles Fire Division arrive to protect the caught young lady. Beam effectively spares her fair in time. Sometime recently, the car dives off the cliff. At Caltech, Dr. Kim Stopp gets information appearing minor seismic tremors happening in Falco, Nevada. He offers the data with his colleague and seismologist Lawrence Hayes. The shutters measured between 2.0 to 2.6, which is bizarre for a zone without deficiencies. Lawrence is interested and inquisitive to examine the matter. The two researchers choose to travel to Nevada to discover out more around the minor shutters. Whereas Beam is making plans with his girl, Blake, for an up-and-coming trip to San Francisco, he gets startling separate papers. His offended spouse, Emma, has cleared out him and is as of now dating her modern accomplice, Daniel Riddick. The sudden news catches Beam off protect, and he tries to manage with the stun of his separate. In the interim, at the Hoover Dam, Stopp and Hayes are conducting tests on a tractive beat of a shutter. Abruptly, the gadget recognizes a spike beat and a more grounded seismic tremor takes after, measuring 7.0, the most noteworthy ever recorded at the dam. The dam begins to break and Stopp battles to elude, whereas Hayes tries to alarm the individuals still on the dam to empty. Stopp exits the office, but when he sees a young lady as well perplexed to move on the disintegrating dam, he stops to protect her. He oversees to carry her to security, but shockingly, he is skewered by a bar in his right foot and passes on. The dam totally disintegrates, driving to far-reaching flooding of adjacent towns. The seismic tremor gets to be the most grounded and most damaging ever recorded in Nevada's history. Beam arrives at his family's house in California, Virginia, to arrange for their up-and-coming trip. In any case, he's called back to work to protect catastrophe casualties in Nevada. In the meantime, Daniel and Blake drive to San Francisco for assembly. Whereas Daniel goes to his assembly, Blake meets an English fellow named Ben Taylor, who is being met alongside his brother Ollie. A correspondent named Serena arrives at Caltech and needs to meet Hayes almost what happened in Nevada. Hayes uncovers that they didn't know there was any blame line there and communicates his conviction that they ought to be able to foresee seismic tremors. One of his colleagues hinders and presents information appearing higher beat rates identified along the complete San Andreas blame than in Nevada. Hayes at that point clarifies why the seismic tremor was activated in Nevada in spite of the need of a fault line and predicts that the total San Andreas might trigger. In Los Angeles, Esses is having lunch with Daniel's sister, Susan, in a high-rise eatery. Amid their discussion, Beam calls Emma from a helicopter in course for support and apologizes for his behavior prior. As they talk, a solid seismic tremor hits, and Emma notifies Beam, who moreover watches the disintegrating turnpike. Beam instructs Emma to urge to the roof for protect. Agreeing to Caltech, the primary major seismic tremor crested at 8.5 and afterward at 9.1, influencing not Fair or Los Angeles, but the complete state of California, counting San Francisco, where Blake and Daniel are found. As the damaging seismic tremor hits, freeze results interior, the building where Emma and Susan are found, causing a few wounds. Emma tells Susan to induce to the roof, but Susan goes to the exit and is murdered when the floor disintegrates. In spite of the encompassing structures crumbling around her, Emma oversees to create it to the roof and rise from the rubble. In the long run, Beam salvages Emma and they barely elude as the encompassing structures collapse. The complete city is cleared out crushed. After Ben's interview in San Francisco, Blake borrows Ollie's book to type in on her number for Ben to call her. As Blake and Daniel are taking off the building's stopping parcel, the seismic tremor hits. They elude, but the ceiling collapses, catching them interior of the car. The flotsam and jetsam smashes part of the car, and Blake's leg is caught beneath the driver's situate. Daniel goes to offer assistance, but as he calls for offer assistance, the flotsam and jetsam falls close him and slaughters a security protector. Rather than sparing Blake, Daniel escapes in fear. Ben and Ollie battle to protect Blake as the flotsam and jetsam over her proceeds to press the roof. They use a jack to lift a three, and the driver's situate moves absent, but Blake's leg is still stuck. At last, Ben pops the car tires, bringing down the car, and they protect her. As the aftershocks proceed, the trio heads to the gadget store to contact Beam. At the store, Blake finds a phone and calls her guardians, telling them she's a firm and that Daniel cleared out her. Emma gets to be irate and clears out a terrible message on Daniel's voicemail. Beam prompts Blake that they have to get out quickly and to go to Coit Tower as a meet. Beam and Emma rapidly head to San Francisco to protect their daughter. In the interim, the structure over the swarm collapses, and in a range to spare himself, Daniel takes the safe spot of somebody else, and the casualty is cleared absent by the flotsam and jetsam. As Ray and Emma are en route to the city, the helicopter's engine comes up short, constraining them to form a crash landing into a superstore in Bakersfield. They attempt to take a vehicle, which is as of now stolen, and the cheat points a weapon at Beam. In any case, Beam manages to repress the perpetrator, and they drive away. Serena makes a difference. Hayes cautioned the individuals of San Francisco through news scope around a greater seismic tremor that's almost to hit the city. He emphasizes that people's lives depend on them clearing out the city quickly. Beam and Emma drive until they experience an elderly couple who cautions them that the San Andreas fault has opened up, rendering the street closed. They return to the couple's domestic, where they find that the couple owns an airplane. Ray trades the stolen car for the plane, and they fly to San Francisco. Amid the flight, Beam offers with Emma his regret that he may not spare their girl, Mallory, who died in a rafting mischance. Emma is looking for a separate, which Beam accepts is due to this catastrophe. Blake, Ben, and Ioan make their way to Coit Tower as their meet point, but it is on fire, so they alter a range and head to Nob Hill to flag Blake's family. Beam and Emma reach San Francisco, but they cannot arrive the plane due to the airport's harmed runway and scattered planes. They are constrained to skydive into the stadium, leaving the plane to crash into the Pacific Sea when it runs out of fuel. In the meantime, Blake, Ben, and Ollie are strolling through a deserted street when the seismic tremor strikes. The seismic tremor measures 9.6, the largest ever recorded in history. Blake and Ollie overseen to urge to the side of the road, but Ben goes to the inverse side, and the glass shards from adjacent building cut his leg. The seismic tremor devastates remaining standing structures, causes the ground to break, and leads to the collapse of suspension bridges. Beam coordinates others to security on the other side of the stadium as the structure collapses. After the seismic tremor, Blake expels the glass shard from Ben's leg, and they head to the most noteworthy ground, which is Knob Slope. In the meantime, Beam and Emma drive a pontoon to the city and see that Coit Tower is on fire. Beam knows that Blake has gone someplace else, and they take note that the water is retreating quickly all of a sudden, demonstrating a tsunami is approaching. The trio gets that torrent caution from the radio, and they rapidly head to Daniel's unfinished building. Beam and Emma overseen to drive their boat into the monster tidal wave, and they make it to the beat fair sometime recently, the wave peaks. They are about hit by a cargo ship that is being carried along by the tidal wave. Daniel is on the Golden Gate Bridge when the wave strikes. Shockingly, he is crushed by a falling shipping holder from the upset cargo transport. The cargo dispatch cuts the entryway bridge in half, and the tidal wave proceeds to surge toward the city. The trio, counting Blake, Ben, and Ollie, arrives at Daniel's unfinished building just in time. Sometime recently, the torrent hit. The bunch takes asylum within the building's basement, which was designed to resist seismic tremors. Sadly, most of the individuals on the ground are cleared absent by water and flotsam and jetsam. The trio was interior the building when a tidal wave hit. The wave caused extreme harm to the town. Beam and Emma drove their pontoon around the crushed town to look for. However, when Blake and Ollie saw their parents within the boat, they were unable to get their consideration. They attempted to flag them by employing a laser pointer that Ollie had gotten from an electronics store. Blake's guardians at long last saw them, but sometime recently they might spare them. The building began to sink into the ground. As a result, Blake got isolated from the two brothers, whereas they overseen to make it to the following floor. Unfortunately, Blake got caught interior the building as the water level kept on rise. Beam at last overseen to induce to his girl, but the exits were jammed. Blake appeared to have suffocated, and Beam battled to induce her body out. As the building was on the skirt of collapse, Emma drove the boat through the window, permitting them to escape as the building at long last collapsed. Once they were outside, Ray attempted to resuscitate Blake, and after a few endeavors, he succeeded. Blake was reunited with her family, and the two boys were moreover protected. Afterward the family, together with Ben and Ollie, overseen to discover safety in Marin District. As they watched the sunset over the crushed and drastically altered geography of the San Francisco Narrows Range, they talked around the future. They moreover taken note and an American flag waving over the now destroyed Brilliant Door Bridge.